name is not the same thing as the description of the variable, right? And we're going to see some examples. So, for example, if you want to talk about age, that's a variable name, right? And you can actually type age there as your variable name, but you could have some more complex variables or variable descriptions that are longer than that. And the thing about the variable name is that it cannot have a space, right? So it's usually a kind of a code. It could sometimes be the full name of the variable if it's short, but you could code it to anything you want it to be, as long as you have a description. Later on, I'll show you where you have the data label, where that helps you identify what this actually means. So it's good to use informative names or based on formula that is consistent or linked to the questionnaire. So when you have a questionnaire, you actually code your questionnaire with a variable name so that once you enter into SPSS, you know exactly what that code actually means. And of course, you'd have your code book as well. So the next thing is variable type. If you go back here, you're going to see it, the type of variable. So your variables could be, this is about more or less like the character variable. It could be a numeric variable, right? Like we have discussed earlier, right? But the only difference here is that, okay, like we said that you have count variables, which are discrete variables. You have continuous variables as well. But also in SPSS, categorical variables can be coded as numerical, right? So you have, for example, if you're coding sex or gender, you could say 1 represents male and 2 represents female, right? Or if you're coding an ordinal data for like small, medium, large, 1 could represent small, 2 medium, and 3 large, right? So those are numeric variables there. You also have string variables or character variables, which are just texts. So if you want to enter something like the name of a city, you want to enter a phone number that, I mean, any text at all, yeah, would be your would be a string. It's called a string variable. Then you have comma variables as well, right? These are numeric variables that use comma to delimit. You have to delimit every 3 spaces. When you have a number that you want to have those, you like the example you see there, 55,668. So once you're going to put that comma there, you identify it as comma, and then you have dot as well, which is similar to that, but using the dot. And you could also, if your variable is a scientific notation, you can also identify it as that. If it's a currency, dollar, you put it there as well, and if it's a constant currency as well. Then you also have restricted numbers, which are non-negative integers. Integers are whole numbers that are padded to a maximum width of the variable. So if you want to restrict what's called the variable width, that's the number of characters on that or digits, you can also do that on SPSS. Then you can also define your variable type as a date, so that whatever you enter in there appears as a date. I mean, it's more like what you see in Excel as well, for those who are familiar with Microsoft Excel. So the next characteristic here is the width. So this is the number of digits or characters that you anticipate will require to be fully entered. So if, for example, you anticipate that the number of digits or characters that would be in your variable. Let's say you're taking a number. Let's say you are surveying. Let's assume we are looking at blood pressure, for example. We know that systolic blood pressures are usually, for any reasonable human, should not exceed 3 characters. If it's 120, it could be 100. So if you're having systolic blood pressure as your as a variable of interest, you could set the variable width to be 3, so that someone cannot enter a figure of 1,000, which is 4 digits, right? Age as well could be 3 digits. I don't know how many people are over 100 years these days. Yeah, so it helps in quality checks. Yeah. So the next one, which is very, very, very important, is your variable label. You can recall that the first variable I discussed was the name. And I said that the variable name is essentially most times a code. So for example, I could decide to code country of origin as, and say, okay, Nigeria is NG1. Right? And now someone who sees that variable name will not know whether NG1 refers to Nigeria or refers to Niger, or even refers to Nicaragua, right? So the way, so when you define that variable is in your variable label, you're going to give that brief explanation that helps you remember exactly what the name refers to. I could also even have age there, and age could actually be, maybe I could even have 2 codings for age. Age 1, which is the continuous, age in years, continuous variable. And I could have another age, which I could code as maybe age 2, which is age in, or age cat, which is age in categories, right? But there's no way someone who looks at it, who is not me, would know what each one means if I don't describe that in the labels. So that's what the label is for. But the label is not for, is not for a long thesis. It can only take a maximum of 255 characters. So it's just a brief description that makes you understand what your variable name represents. And when you're doing your analysis, that label will also come up in your output. So for example, if I do analysis, for example, and I've coded age as age cat, my output would, and that age cat is age in categories. I put that in my variable label. When I conduct my analysis, it's going to write the age in categories, not age cat, right? So the next one is values. The variables are descriptors of categories. So initially I did mention that you could code categorical variables into numerical. So you have, for example, you have one representing, for gender, you have one representing male, 2 representing female, or 0 representing whatever. Now, the only way SPSS will be able to know which variable, so what those codes actually mean is to put it in your values. We're going to see some examples on how to do that, right? So that's where SPSS will look at it and then interpret what your 0s and 1s and 2s and 3s mean. So if 0 means male, 1 means female, 2 means whatever, means transgender, whatever, or not specified, you can put all those codes there. And if you're labeling countries as well, you could have maybe countries in West Africa which are 15 in number. You could have one being maybe Nigeria, 2 Ghana, 3 Cote d'Ivoire, and all that. So you're going to put those codes in in values. So that's where SPSS will be able to interpret that 1 is this and 2 is that. When you do analysis, it comes out as that, except you define it otherwise, or you instruct it also otherwise. So very importantly is missing variables. Now, in most surveys, oftentimes you find that there could be missing variables. Sometimes it could be user-defined, sometimes it could be systems-defined. But sometimes you send out a survey and people do not complete the survey. They can fill maybe the first section and not the others, or choose certain questions which they do not answer, right? So when there are missing variables, it's important to have SPSS understand that a blank space means that this is missing. So you need to put a code on it. So often people use extreme values depending on what your sample size is. So if I'm surveying, maybe I expect that, okay, well, we're going to have the largest number I'm going to have there is in that category is 50. Then I could code my missing variables as 999. That's a very common coding for missing variables. So if I look at, let's assume the variable is age. I know very well that we don't have Methuselah anymore these days. So there's nobody who is over, I'm not sure there's anybody on Earth who is over 150 years. So I would code my missing variables as maybe 999, knowing that nobody can ever actually be that age. So once SPSS, then I will instruct SPSS by inputting in those values I talked about, the value labels, right? I will indicate that 999 is missing, right? So when SPSS sees 999, it treats it as a missing variable. Hello, any questions? Because I think I'm the one talking right now. Any questions so far?
No, for now, sir.
For now, no, sir.
Okay. I don't understand the missing variables, sir. Maybe
okay, you don't understand missing variables?
I don't understand, sir. Yes, sir.
You don't or you do?
I don't understand.
Okay, you don't. Okay, fine. Okay, so let me explain again. I'll go slowly this time. Okay, could this kindly repeat the missing variable? Okay, fine. So let's assume I have a questionnaire, and I've indicated in the questionnaire that maybe the first question is your age, for example. Now you realize that, okay, maybe I send a survey to about 100 people or even 1,000. Now, some people may choose not to fill that value, right? You have questionnaires where people answer some questions and fail to answer some questions. I don't know if you've experienced that.
Yes.
Yeah. So in that situation, if I should enter it normally, like into a spreadsheet like Excel, without you discover that space will be taken as 0, right? Because there's nothing there. But the problem is that, what if the age of the patient or the person or the participant in question is 0 years old? Maybe the person is an infant, less than 1 year, and my answers are expected to be discrete answers. So we expect that anybody who is less than 1 would enter 0. Then you have a conflict there, because 0 actually is a discrete variable on its own. It's a response, right? So, and then if I do not instruct SPSS on how to identify those that did not respond, SPSS may begin to treat those who did not respond as though they are actually 0 years and include them in the analysis. So if I want to take the average age, for example, and there were 10 people, normally I would sum up all the ages together and divide by 10. But in this particular case, one person did not specify the age. SPSS may think that there are actually 10 people there and still give me an average of sum of age divided by 10, whereas actually the true number of people who responded is 9. Do you get me? Do you
Yes,
get
sir.
me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you. So in order to let SPSS know that a missing variable is not 0 and should not be counted, then you need to instruct SPSS that I have identified this number. So for example, whenever someone doesn't respond, I could use an extreme value that I know can never be an age. So I put 999 there, right? Then I instruct SPSS that, look, when you see 999, treat it as missing. So that way, when SPSS is calculating the average, it will get to 999 and it will understand that that means that variable is a missing variable, does not exist. And so my average will be, the denominator is going to be 9, not 10. Is that clear? Faith Adams.
It's clear now.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So no further, any further questions at this point? All right, so go ahead. Yeah. So columns are aligned is just simple. It's just how you want the variable to appear in your data view. So how do you want it to appear? How do you want it to be aligned? Left align, right align, and all that, just like you have in Excel. So the next important one is measure, right? And this is where that's why we had that initial early exercise. You need to let SPSS know what kind of variable it is. Is it a numerical variable? Is it a categorical variable? And if it's a categorical variable, is it nominal or is it ordinal? So this is where you define that characteristic, right? So there are three classes SPSS uses. For all numeric variables, that's all quantitative variables, you enter them as scale. You select scale. We'll have an exercise soon, right? You select scale. For ordinal variables, you select ordinal, and for nominal variables, you select nominal. At this point, I'll do another brief exercise to be sure that we all are following. Hakim Yusuf, can you tell us give us examples of ordinal variables? Hakim, are you there? Or are you watching Netflix? Okay. Ibrahim Aliyu.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, yes.
I can hear you, sir.
So, yeah, examples of ordinal variables again.
Okay, ordinal variables are
just one example.
Okay. Strongly agree, disagree, and strongly agree.
Beautiful. Okay, cool. Who has not spoken today?
Today is Saturday, June 18th, 2020.
Example. Can I go ahead?
Okay, who is speaking? I was scrolling through to see who.
Adebayo.
No, but you've spoken before, right?
I have.
Yeah, so let's look for someone who has not spoken. Victor, okay, Balama.
Okay, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah,
all right. Example of ordinal variable. I think maybe level of education. Level of education. Maybe you can. For those who have PhDs, you might say they are higher than someone who has master's degree, then compared to someone who has an undergraduate degree or so. That's maybe a BSc or so. You can also
another one. That's fine. That's just so that someone else don't finish all the answers.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Faith Adams, examples of nominal variable. Is Faith Adams still here? Disappeared, I guess. Okay. Who else again? Cliff.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Cliff.
Yes, for nominal variables, you could say, let's say colors. You could tag colors green, yellow, blue, and also.
Okay, awesome. That's fine. Great. So I can tell that everyone is following. You're all on the same page. Okay, so the next one is the next characteristics is role. You find that there. You define a variable's role as input, where when input target both non-partition or split. So for input, these are independent variables or predictor variables or exposure variables, depending on what school of thought you are from, right? So for those who do analytical statistics, this is where you define your variables for SPSS to know that this is your independent variables, or while target variable is your outcome variable or dependent variable, right? I'm sure that somewhere in this class, sometime in this class, there will be lectures on that. So that you get, so for those who do not know those kinds of variables in analytical statistics, when you're trying to either predict or do some form of test of association between two variables, you'll get to learn a whole lot more about that. But generally, for your predictor variables or independent variables, you tag them as input. And then for your outcome variables or dependent variables, they're called target. And if they could be both, you indicate that if it's neither, that's there. And if it's partition, that's a variable that partitions data into separate samples and split. So, but essentially, I think most times we work with input and target, or both. Yeah. So this is what a variable view would look like. You can see there are 3 variables here. I think maybe what I would do is to call on someone to, based on what I've just explained, to describe the various columns. Let me look for someone who has not spoken. That's how I get to know if you are following. Bilkis, are you there? Hello, Bilkis. Bilkisu. Okay. Forgive me, I will not be able to pronounce this name properly. But I think that sounds like a South African name. Nolozolo.
Good evening, everyone. This is Nolopolo in South Africa.
Okay. Yeah, so
Okay.
Can you just, okay, yeah.
So the first variable we have is age, or am I too far? Sorry. You can go ahead.
Yeah, no, yeah, go ahead. So describe the various columns under age and explain to me what they mean.
Okay, even though I joined the class late, I'll try my best.
Okay.
We've got age, and I mean, that's the first variable. Type, it's numeric, because with age, we have someone who's 0 or either 999. We cannot go over 2000. I believe with width, because it's 3, you cannot go to the 4th digit. Am I still, or am I still good? And then
Go ahead.
Decimal, I am not quite sure.
Okay.
And then
What do you think? What do you think that means? I think I didn't mention decimals, but what do you think it means?
Decimal, maybe.
Okay, just a moment. Do you have SPSS open on your computer right now?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so can you go to the variable view?
I think that just shows that
variable.
the age is not a continuous.
No, please, someone is speaking, just one person at a time, please.
Yes, I'm on variable view at the moment.
Okay. So, do you see that column written decimal?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so when you click on it, what do you see?
Because I had typed age, I am seeing 2 at the moment.
Okay, so click on the, you would see
there's 2
arrows
arrows,
pointing up and down.
1. Yeah.
Okay, great. So what do you think? Yeah, so broadly, what do you think that would mean?
I am very lost. I don't want to lie.
Okay. Someone wanted to help you before. I don't know who that was. So can you jump in now?
I heard that person that was helping. Kindly jump in.
I want to believe that earlier the decimal has 0 to probably indicate that the age is not a continuous variable. So you can't have a decimal point anywhere in between. Decimal point means that between successive range, you can actually have infinite number of possible outcomes.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you very much. Who just spoke?
Thank you very much.
Abdul Hamid.
Who?
Abdul Hamid.
Abdul Hamid. Okay, good. Thank you very much, Abdul Hamid. Yeah. So back to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nolu, you can call me Nolu. Nolu.
Nolu. Okay. Don't mind me. I'm ashamed to say this. You know, I actually studied at VETS for my PhD. I was there for 3 years. and I still can't pronounce your name. That's very sad, sad on my part, right?
It can be hectic pronouncing our names. It's okay, we understand.
Okay, great. So Nano.
Okay, and then under label. So we can either label age or in years. And then we move to values.
No, don't move. You haven't explained that.
Okay, age can either be labeled in years. Yeah, that's my understanding.
So what does label mean?
Label would be like labeling something as I'm facing a brown door.
Sorry?
I'd like to understand labeling something is giving it my English is gone, it's failing me at the moment.
Can I help out a bit?
Okay, Victor,
yes,
you want? Okay.
Yeah, this is Victor. I think label, you are describing what you're seeing. In label, you describe, you want to elaborately describe what you're seeing under name. So you want to describe it elaborately. Okay, name, for instance, you have age here. Under label, you are saying that it's age in years, actually. So it's elaborately describing what you have under the name variable.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. So, Nolo, you see that I could have under name. Okay, or let's go to the third one. If you see, the third one is called MH score, right? Age was easy to know that it's age, right? But MH score, what do you think it means? MH score, what do you think it means? You can see there the third variable. Are you still with me?
I'm still here, but I can't find MH score.
No, it's just on the screen, on my screen. Yeah, on my own screen.
Is it next to a decimal?
No. The third variable number.
Oh, MH score. Is it mental health score?
Yeah. So how did you know it was mental health score?
I saw under labels.
Beautiful. So that's what the label is designed to do, to give an explanation to what the name is, right?
Oh, thank you.
Okay, great. So you can go ahead with the next column on your on age.
And then we get to values. And then we clicked none.
Okay. Yeah, okay, value is none. So yeah. Why do you think it's none?
I kind of don't know.
Okay. You know what you help me do? Now look at your screen, look at the participants on your screen and select somebody who would help you answer that question.
Okay, let me see. Victor Okebalama.
No, Victor just spoke, so I want someone else.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Let's see. Esamina Isai. Sorry for pronouncing your name so bad.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's a. Thank you.
Okay.
Who is the person?
It's me.
Okay, great. Okay, go ahead. The values was written none. Why is it that way?
I think because age is a numeric variable. If we're dealing with something like a categorical variable, we may now need to use values. Say, like you explained, male will be 1, female will be 2. Okay. But for something like age is a number. So we don't need to start coding or putting any extra values anywhere.
Okay, great. Thank you. Nolo, did you understand what she explained?
That was very nice and simple. Thank you very much.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. So you understood what she explained, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and everybody understood? Is there anyone who did not understand that?
Sorry, can I have a question, please?
Okay.
Yeah, I do understand that because age is numerical, we don't have to put it into any category. But in the case of, let's say, marital status now, we could have a married, unmarried.
Yeah. So we'll come to that. You're jumping the gun. Okay. But we are asking Nolo to explain that first column that she's dealing with, age, right? We saw that the values written there was none. So I asked her to, if she understood why it was none.
And every other one is none too.
No, not everyone is none. Job satisfied is not none.
Oh, okay. Wow, mine is not. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so I guess we all are on the same page, I guess. So Nolo, back to you.
Sorry, I didn't get why the value is none for the age.
Okay,
Sorry for interrupting.
Okay, no problem. So age is a numerical variable, right? And age in years, well, could be considered a discrete variable. It could be discrete. I mean, depending on how on school of thought, it could be considered discrete or continuous. But the fact is that it is numeric, right? So one, when you see one in age, one means 1 year, right? It doesn't mean any other thing. If you see 100, it means that person is 100 years old, right? It doesn't mean any other thing. But was it, who was the last person speaking? Was it Abdul? I don't know. I didn't see the full name. Right?
Abdulhamid.
So, Abdulhamid, okay, great, thank you. So he was trying to explain with, or let me let him go ahead, since we are back to what he was describing that I stopped him. So just go ahead, Abdulhamid, please.
Okay, actually, I think I had different interfaces on my system. So the spreadsheet in front of me, I actually saw that it showed none for the label on the gender too. So I was now wondering that why would that also be none? And I know fully well that we could have gender to be coded, like married could be 1. We can decide to put unmarried to be 0. We can decide that widow should be 2. Okay, so in that instance, it shouldn't have been none.
Okay, beautiful. So she had asked a question. So I was going to explain her question, but I thought since you had begun to explain it, you should just, but you have done that anyway. So, so basically, you consider for categorical variables, your coordinates. So if you have marital status, for example, single, married, separated, divorced, and all the rest, right? You would want SPSS to, you're going to code that data such that SPSS can understand that when you write 1 means, you could say, okay, 1 would mean single, 2 would mean married, 3 could mean divorced, 4 could mean widowed, you know, so that's how you code categorical data in SPSS. But for numerical variables, whatever they are is what they are. So that's why they don't have value labels, right? So we'll do a few exercises, but let's just, so I don't know whether it's clear to you now.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
Okay, great,
thank you.
Awesome. Nola, back to you. From where are you? Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban?
I'm in Cape Town.
Cape Town, okay. Very windy.
Then we go to, come again?
I said, is it windy today?
It was raining earlier today, but it's kind of cold at the moment.
Okay, great. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Then now we move to missing. This is where we categorize values that are completely absent from the data. That will mean if there is data that is missing, we use 999 in order for SPSS to be able to recognize that not everyone that was supposed to answer answered. Say, for example, if 5 people were given a survey, only 4 that answered. So the fifth, what 999 would represent the missing person. Hope I didn't confuse everyone.
Awesome.
Then we move to columns.
Forget columns and align. Let's just move to the other ones. Those are not very important. Yeah.
Then we get to measure with scale. That's where we put ordinal variables, like your first, second, or third.
Sorry, like what?
Sorry. With scale, that's where we would do your weights.
Okay, so but this is age right now, so it is labeled as scale.
So it's measure. Is it measuring if I am 19 and the next person is 20 and the other one is
okay, great.
8.
Yeah. So it's numerical. It's a numeric variable. So it's you put it as scale, right? Yeah. So you're right. So the last one.
The input.
Yeah.
I am not sure about that one.
Okay. You want to point out another person who would help you with that?
Yes, let me do picking. Adeyeye.
Adeyeye. Let me scroll to see.
Yes, please. Yeah, which of it?
Okay, yeah. So the last one is role.
Role. Well, I'm not sure we discussed that.
Oh, I did, but you can point someone else who can who may want to help.
Okay. Okay, I'll call on Cliff.
Okay. All right. So yes. Okay. I think we're okay. Cliff, go ahead.
I'm not sure about the rule. I knew you talked about the role being input and target, and it's also being dependent and independent.
Great. No, I totally understand. Like if you're
okay,
not...
can I come in a bit? Sorry.
Okay, quickly because we're out of time.
Okay, I think for role, the input is actually independent variables. So, for instance, I think my understanding perhaps stuff like the exposure. I don't know. Yeah. But like the exposures, usually you have a dependent and independent variable. Yeah. So usually the independent variables are ones that could affect the outcomes. They usually affect what the outcome is going to be. So if you have, for instance, an exposure, it's likely to be an input because it's an independent variable. But if you have other variables that are targets, which are likely going to be outcomes, which can be affected by whatever the exposure is going to be, you can call that